Another thing that popped up, you were talking about people being more interested in what we're trying to produce and being proud of what we're trying to produce than in checking the box that I finished my thing for the day. And I think that's, if I ask most companies, I think they'd say, yeah, we want that. We want that. But it doesn't always play out. Um, and I hear in what you're saying an alignment around a goal state. Like there's something we're trying to hit. And we all kind of get that. And so when the VFX artist looks at the work they've done in game or in the cinematic cutscene, and they go, I can do that better, and this is how. And you go, you know what? Go ahead, take that time. Yeah, let's do that better. What keeps you, or what guides you from the times where you say, you know what, it's good enough, let's roll with it, versus yeah, let's go ahead, take that again, see if we, because that's going to cost time and we're not doing something else.
Um,
It,
Sorry, John, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, it is a difficult balancing act. We do have some kind of producery metric ways of managing some of this stuff. I can remember a few cases where the discussion takes place and we can very quickly come to like a logical decision because we've got a huge amount of data from early access that we can pull from.
Hmm.
So there's things like we look at a really cool idea, we can say, oh, this, a really cool edge case if you are specifically a dark elf ranger could be put in here, and we go, how much resources should we put into making that a reality?
Mm-hmm.
If we can look at our metrics and go, well, that's 0.25% of players, we know straight away we need to keep this relatively simple. We still want everything to have impact. I think the floor for what Larian tries to produce with things is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
The ceiling goes way into, raising Greg's blood pressure, but the floor even at that is quite good. Like we'll never just go, it's fine. Like fine is not good enough. It's
Mm-hmm.
always, let's make it good, let's make it fun.
Yeah, there's a saying that animators they don't ever finish a scene. The scene just gets taken away from them because animators love to we love to polish, right? We love to noodle and play with the curve editor and just make things absolutely perfect. But and I mean it's like John says, like it's a return on investment. If there is something that someone is proposing that will impact the player and their enjoyment and will hit that note that we're trying to hit, then that is kind of a no-brainer.
So the orientation there is towards the player. Is the ownership of that decision something that lands on particular people, or is that something that's shared by the team? I mean, there's probably some blend of it, but at some point someone has to make a call. And John, is that you, like, hey, I'm pulling out the production metrics. This is 0.17% of the population. I think it is good and fun, but it's not the most amazing. That's probably okay. Or like, how is that made? Who is there somebody there who's like, I'm the shot caller on this?
I haven't. I don't think there's ever been a case where there's one shot caller. I
Okay.
think it's generally something where, like, we have all of our directors and leads who talk to each other. Like the communication is generally very good, and it's generally a decision by committee. There's times where someone who has all of the information, or at least the lion's share of the information in certain circumstances, might be Sven, and he'll say, okay, look, we need to drop everything and work on this thing. Whatever you're working on now, that goes on the finish it, or else it gets put on hold until we have more time down the line, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't happen very often. It's generally something where, like, it is a consensus that people come to when we discuss it. It's never a case of production comes in and goes, okay, everybody down tools, that's it, you're finished.
Pencils down, class.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, there is a deadlines are a very real thing,
Mm-hmm.
and There is people's time and people's money that is dependent on you hitting certain deadlines. So you're always balancing that. Like, you've got to hit a deadline, but how are you going to spend those last couple of hours before you hit the deadline? What are the things you're going to focus on? And we're given an amount of flexibility as to choose what is the most important thing. And I think that's nice, that while, production and senior leadership make calls on things, they also trust department heads and the team heads and leadership within the teams to make those calls. Like, we were hired and put into these positions because we were seen as being good at their job for whatever reason, and they've allowed us to make those decisions. And that's not particularly fulfilling if every time I said I need to reshoot this, I was second guessed by everybody, and they didn't trust me.
John comes running in with his clipboard and he's like, "No, we need to get to the next scene."
Yeah, it's like, no, I know we can make up that time later. Yeah. Like, we will do this. We'll balance that out. I mean, that's a fairly simple leadership tactic of just trust your people to make the right decision, and allow them to make those right decisions.
I hear in that, so you just said one that was coming to mind for me. So a bit ago you said we're hiring people that we think are going to culturally match the indie vibe we're trying to create here, that everybody can be heard. We have a high degree of autonomy, and we can do that because we hired people who we trust to do their job well, and to have something else you mentioned, the best interest of the player in mind all the time, right? So that there is actually some shared vision. There will be subtle differences because there's some subjectivity about like what is good enough, what is fun enough, like that sort of thing. But broadly, we know everybody's going in the same direction. I am curious, who sets that direction when it came to BG3 overall? Like, how did you know this is good enough, this is fun enough, this is in line with the feel that we're trying to hit, or the whatever it is, when it came to either individual scenes or just overall?
Are we talking about in the game in general, or specifically the cinema? So it's Sven, who is very hands-on, involved in. Well, he's the creative director. I mean, there is very little going on in the creation of the game that Sven was not involved in. Or at least there was nothing in the game that Sven was unaware of.
Wow.
Like, he gets involved. He wants to know. He needs to know. He's trying to craft a narrative and a story, and then turn it into a game that people will enjoy. So he looks into all things and asks the important questions of us, and sort of sets that this is the kind of game I'm making. Come along and let's make this idea together. And I think he holds a really strong vision. I worked at several studios in my career, and the most successful ones that I've worked at are ones where there is a really clear creative vision at the top that you can understand, that is easily defendable, that is understandable. It is can be sort of distilled down to a simple idea that they can sort of sell you, and then you can take that idea and add to it and support it in whatever department you're in.
Yeah, I think it's like Greg said. Sven kind of defined what his priorities were in making this game, what he wanted it to do, how he wanted it to feel, and how deep he wanted us to go with it. And then from that kind of foundation, we've incredible people who started to define things in early access, like what our combat system would be like, how we would adapt 5th edition to work digitally, which is a mammoth task in its own right.
I think many places that have a single creative director who seems like they're as involved can often go to a place of, hey, there's important people who make decisions, and there's everybody else whose job it is just to execute those decisions. And I get quite the opposite from you, which probably is a credit to Sven, and also credit to the leaders around, and obviously to the team to respond to that well. But I'm curious, as I say all this, like, what comes up for you? How do you think about this, the combination of this very strong top vision with also the high autonomy of people to iterate and figure things out on their own?
I think the thing is people are always looking to put something in that's going to surprise Sven. That's going to give him that little bit of joy. He has an incredibly uncanny ability to be player zero, like the first person to play the game. He can almost wipe his memory every time he boots the game up again. I have no idea how he does it, but he can always play the game with fresh eyes. So putting in new things that are going to catch his attention and surprise him or shock him or bring him that little giggle because it's a slightly gruesome moment or a slightly risque moment or whatever. Like we've a lot of people who know what he likes and trust that what he likes is what people are going to like. So people are always there's always an endeavor to do that, and that gives people a lot of creative freedom because they can push the envelope a little bit and they can maybe surprise him with something that he really likes that he didn't think he would or that he didn't think of before himself. So you're playing to an audience always. Like it's just that the first member of our audience is Sven always.
One of the things I learned since being here is you tend to be more successful if you're making a game for yourself. If you make something that you would want to play, that excites you, that you wish someone had made for you to do. Generally, there's people out there who have the same feeling, that want that same kind of game to be made. And I think that exists a lot with the people at Larian. We're just making games that are like, yeah, I'd like to play this, and the kind of the benefit is the game is so big that quite often it's like it's unknowable. Like there's lots in the game that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
So you get surprised by the game all the time because people are putting new stuff in there all the time. So it's delightful to sort of play through the game and discover what's being added in there, even in the sort of the early stages, because I know that I'm going to get to work on that later on when it gets to the cinematic level. That I'm going to get to shoot that action sequence when that shows up. And it's really, really enjoyable.
Love it. Okay, so the thing I wanted to ask, John, I'm going to start with you on this. Did you enjoy this episode? If you did and are looking for more conversations like this one, join the Building Better Games Discord community. It's for leaders and producers in game dev who are frustrated with solving the wrong problems and who want to share experiences and learn how to lead and build better games. Check out the show notes to join. I'll see you there.